ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। Hare Krishna. Welcome to our series of sessions on the episode of Gajendra from Srimad Bhagavatam. It's our great fortune that we are having access to the wealth of this Srimad Bhagavatam translations given to us by Srila Prabhupada and our previous acharyas. So it's not an ordinary fortune to be able to access this wealth of scriptural knowledge, but acharyas are so merciful that they are very kind upon us to give the wealth of bona fide explanations on Srimad Bhagavatam. So Gajendra episode is one of the most enchanting episodes in Srimad Bhagavatam, where even a non-human devotee also received such unprecedented mercy from the Supreme Lord Krishna, right? So the Lord is not neglectful towards any kind of devotee, whatever may be the species of the devotee. So even in 9th canto, 5th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a beautiful shloka that is spoken by Sugriva. He says, "Na janma nunam mahato na sobhagam navanna buddhir na kritistosha hetu." Means high birth, janma, mahatona sobhagam, one's influence and one's opulence and one's power, physical strength and vidya, education, scholarship, wealth, all these are not the necessary prerequisites or qualifications to receive the mercy of the Lord. Even an elephant like Gajendra can receive the mercy of the Lord. Even a person who is born in the demoniac dynasty, born amongst demons like Bali Maharaj or Prahalad, also can receive the mercy of the Lord. Even a vulture, Jatayu, can receive the mercy of the Lord. Even a monkey like Hanumanji and Sugriva can receive the mercy of the Lord. Even a bear like Jambavan can receive the mercy of the Lord. So like that, birth, caste, creed, nationality, these are not prerequisites for one's entry into devotional service or one's being a recipient of Krishna's mercy. So Gajendra is so fortunate. So now in the last two sessions, we have seen, let me show the slideshow. In the last two sessions we have seen Gajendra's power and his crisis, right? So Gajendra was such a powerful animal, the king of all animals in the forest, and Gajendra went to this Trikuta mountain region, and the mountain region is so beautiful and its climate is so pleasant, and even great animals and birds and even demigods and demigoddesses also take pleasure in spending time in this Trikuta mountain region. And in that region there is a garden called Rutumat garden, and this is the beloved garden of demigod Varuna, and there the lakes and flowers and trees, they all increase the beauty of that whole ambience. And Gajendra has made his entry into this Rutumat garden lake, and Gajendra was wandering with female elephants, and Gajendra's so powerful that he broke so many plants and creepers and thickets, not even caring for the piercing thorns, and with his herd he entered this lake. He was intoxicated also by drinking honey, and suddenly, unexpectedly, there is a calamity. In such a comfortable situation, Gajendra encountered a grave calamity. A crocodile came and caught his leg. And for 1,000 years, Gajendra and the crocodile were fighting with each other. But crocodile could not leave Gajendra, and Gajendra could not release himself from the jaws of this crocodile. Gajendra, being a land animal, was losing his strength day by day, moment by moment. But crocodile was strong enough, because crocodile gains his strength within the water. So Gajendra introspected in this difficulty. All the elephants who came with me, my wives and my friends and many other elephants, they did not have the necessary power to protect me. Although they love me and they intend to protect me, they did not have the capacity, ability to protect me. So one may intend to help us, one may have the intention or the goodwill to help us, but unless one has the necessary strength and capacity, one cannot actually do any favor to us. So Gajendra understood that no one is coming to rescue me. So there must be some superior person, some great person, some supreme Lord who has the ability to protect me. So Gajendra started offering his prayers of surrender. Actually, Gajendra was a king named Indrajumna Maharaj in the previous life, and he was a devotee of the Lord also. So suddenly, by the grace of the Lord, Gajendra could remember a prayer that he has memorized in his past life. So he started offering that prayer to the Lord, seeking his protection. So yesterday we have seen the first 16 prayers of Gajendra. So in these first 4 prayers, starting from 2nd shloka ending up to 5th shloka, Gajendra glorified various characteristics of the Supreme Lord. How the Lord is the cause of all causes, how he is the supreme energy, supreme energetic, and is transcendental to the darkness of this material existence. So Gajendra offered these prayers, and later Gajendra also spoke about how the Supreme Lord is inconceivable to even great sages and demigods. Even the great devatas and rishis cannot understand the Lord, just like ordinary naive audiences cannot understand the dramatic performance of an artist. And what are the qualifications to understand the Lord? Didrikshavo yasya padam sumangalam vimukta sangha manayah susadhavah. So in this shloka, Gajendra says that people who are very much dedicated to the lotus feet of the Lord, people who are completely detached from any material enjoyment, and people who are very benevolent and well-wishing towards others, so such people can actually understand the Lord. People who are fixed up in their devotional vows, such are the necessary qualities for one to understand the Lord. So after this, Gajendra also described about the appearances of the Lord, how the Lord externally appears as various incarnations, how the Lord internally appears as super soul and starts witnessing all our activities, and how by practicing Bhakti Yoga one can realize the Lord, and how the Lord also has so many forms of Shanta, Ghora, means Narasimha form, and all these forms. So after this we have seen several qualities of the Lord, how Gajendra described that the Supreme Lord is the Supreme Father of the entire existence. He is the Supreme Director. He is the Supreme Cause. Namo Namah. Namo Namaste Khilakaranaya Nishkaranaya Adbhutakaranaya Sarvagamamnaya Maharnavaya Namopavargaya Parayanaya. So we have seen how the Supreme Lord is the cause of all causes, but he himself does not have any cause. That's why he is called the wonderful cause. And how the Lord is also the supreme revealer of knowledge. And now we stopped at the 17th verse. We already discussed the meaning, but let us again recite it and elaborate on its meaning based on the commentaries given by the Acharyas. Madrik prapanna pashupasha vimokshanaaya muktaya bhuri karunaya namolayaya swamshena sarvatanubhran manasi pratita pratyagdrishe bhagavate brihate namaste. So in this shloka, Gajendra says, Madra prapanna, people like me who surrender unto you. Prapanna means surrendering unto the Lord. Madra prapanna pashu. Pashu means an animal. And because Gajendra used this word pashu, and he himself is a pashu, we should not think that this is a prayer meant for animals. So Prabhupada says, any living entity who is bound by the laws of material existence, any living entity who is conditioned by the modes, sattva, rajas, tamo gunas, is a pashu. Okay, so pashu pasha vimokshanaya. So just like Gajendra, a pashu, is caught by the jaws of crocodile, all the conditioned souls who are as good as Pashus are caught by the jaws of the crocodile of Maya. And what are the jaws of this Maya? They are threefold: Sattva Guna, Rajo Guna, Tamo Guna. So this mode of goodness, passion and ignorance bind the conditioned soul, bind the living entity to this material world. Right? So Madrik Prapanna Pashupasha Vimokshanaya. So if we do Prapanna, if we surrender unto the Lord takes it as his responsibility to protect us, to relieve us, to liberate us from the jaws of the crocodile of Maya. Madrik Prapanna Pashupasha Vimokshanaya. So how can the Lord liberate us? Because he himself is never bound. Okay. So for example, I am bound to this pillar. Okay, I am bound to one pillar. Somebody just got some ropes and then bound me completely with ropes from top to bottom. I am unable to move, and my mouth is also bound, bound by a cloth, and I am unable to talk also. So who can release me? A person who is not bound by ropes to another pillar can release me. If another person is also bound by another rope to another pillar, he cannot protect me. Someone who is not bound, someone who is muktaya, can cause vimokshana to me. Right? So, mukta people can cause vimokshana. Madrik prapanna pashupasha vimokshanaya means if we surrender to Krishna, he can release us from bondage because he himself is not bound by anything. Okay. So one who is not bound can release us from bondage. So that's the first quality. Means Krishna has the capacity to release us. Krishna has the capacity to liberate us, protect us. Just having capacity is not sufficient. So now I am bound to a pillar and another person is not bound to a pillar. So he has the capacity to protect me, release me. But if he does not have the compassion to release me, he will not untie me. So compassion is needed. Bhuri karunaya, muktaya bhuri karunaya. But having compassion and capacity are not sufficient. If the person does not even notice that I am bound to a pillar, okay, and I am also unable to speak out, my mouth is shut, okay. If he is not even aware, if he is not cognizant of the fact that I am bound to a pillar, so how can he protect me? Okay. So cognizance is also needed. The Lord has all three profusely. He has the capacity, he has compassion, he has cognizance. He is muktaya, he is bhuri karunaya, he is alayaya. Alayaya means one who is aware of the difficulties of his devotees, one who is completely attentive to the needs of devotees. Okay. So if we need protection, Krishna is willing to give us protection. Right? Problem is we don't express our needs. We don't feel the need to pray to the Lord. We try to struggle in our own difficulties and try to come out on our own. Of course, we have to put our endeavor. A human endeavor has to be there, but one needs to also understand that unless Krishna sanctions, I cannot be protected from this predicament. Right? So now we are saying that Gajendra is saying that he can release us from bondage and he has compassion and he is aware of all our difficulties. How is he aware? He is there in his spiritual world, Goloka Yevaneva Satya Khalatma Bhuto. But the Lord can descend onto this planet whenever he wants, and although he is there, he is simultaneously existing in our hearts also. स्वांशेन सर्वतनुभृन्मनसि प्रतीता प्रत्यग्दृशे भगवते बृहते नमस्ते. Swamshena, by his own expansion as super soul. Swamshena sarvatanubhrin manasi pratita. So by his own amsha, by his own expansion as the super soul or Paramatma, he stays right within the hearts of every single living entity. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Ishvara sarva bhutanam hriddeshe arjuna tishtati. Means in the hearts of all living entities, I stay. Krishna says, And he also says, Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto mattah smritirjnanamohanam cha. Hridi sannivishto, I am staying in the hearts of all living entities, and I give knowledge, I give remembrance, I give everything. Right? I give forgetfulness also. So he is aware. The closest person to our hearts is Krishna. Krishna is the closest person. We may think that my friend is close, my mother is close, my father is close, my brother is close, my sister is close. Yes, they are close, but they are not as close as the super soul. So they are next to us, but super soul is within us. Okay, he is much closer. Okay, so he is aware of our problems. So in this way, Gajendra glorifies, my dear Lord, you are the most merciful deliverer of all your servants. And Gajendra says that Bhagavate Brahate. Madhvacharya gives a beautiful commentary to this. Bhagavate means Bhagavan. This word refers to any Lord. Narasimhadev is also Bhagavan. Vamana is also Bhagavan. And sometimes Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Vayu, Brahma, Shiva, they are also called Bhagavans. But here, Gajendra uses the word Bhagavate Brahate Namaste. Brahate. Brahata means the greatest Bhagavan. That is Krishna only. Krishnastu Bhagavan Swayam. Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. He is the supreme Bhagavan. Okay. Bhagavate Brahate Namaste. So, in this way, Gajendra glorifies the Lord. Now, let's go to the next shloka. So, this is very nice shloka. Atmatmajapta grahavitta. Oh, I'm sorry. I will show the slide. Atmatmajapta grahavitta janeshu saktair दुष्प्रापणाय गुणसंग विवर्जिताय मुक्तात्मभिस्वहृदये परिभाविताय ज्ञानात्मने भगवते नम ईश्वराय. Atmatmajapta grahavitta janeshu saktair. Atma is one's own self. Okay, or the body in this context. Now, Atma word can mean many things according to the context. Sometimes Atma is soul, sometimes Atma is super soul, sometimes Atma is mind, sometimes Atma is body, sometimes Atma is intelligence. Okay, so in this way, Atma word is used in different ways in different contexts. Okay, so now let's get back to the shloka. Atma is the body here. Atmaja means one's own children. Apta means relatives. Griha means house. Vitta means wealth. Janeshu, all the followers. Okay. Saktair means totally absorbed in them. The conditioned souls are totally attached to their Atma, Atmaja, Apta, Griha, Vitta, Jana. Saktair means totally immersed in their thoughts. Dushprapanaya gunasanga vivarjitaya. So because of this absorption in material affairs, Dushprapanaya, it's very difficult to attain the Lord. So gunasanga vivarjitaya, only those people who are completely devoid of any attachment to the material modes, muktatmabhi, those who are completely liberated, for them the Lord appears in the heart. Swahridaye paribhavitaya, the Lord can completely resplendently manifest in the hearts of those people who are completely devoid of material attachments. In this way, Gajendra glorifies the devotees of the Lord. Okay, so Jnanatmane Bhagavate Nama Ishwaraya. So next, in the next few shlokas, Gajendra describes the impetus for shelter. Okay, so what is the impetus for Sakama Bhaktas and what is the impetus for Nishkama Bhaktas? Okay, so now Sakama Bhaktas are those people who worship the Lord with a desire to attain some material results. Okay, so Nishkama Bhaktas or Akama Bhaktas are those people who worship the Lord with absolutely no desires, no material desires. They have spiritual desires to serve the Lord. Okay, but they have no material desires for their own sense enjoyment. Okay, so what is the difference between these two categories of devotees? But ultimately both are devotees. So let's talk about Sakama Bhaktas first. Yam dharma kamartha vimukti kama भजन्त इष्टां गतिमाप्नुवन्ति किं चाशिशोरात्यपि देहमव्ययम् करोतु मेदभ्रवयो दयो विमोक्षणम्. So yam dharma kama artha vimukti kama. So they are centered on dharma, karma, kama. Means basically there are four purusharthas. Okay, what are they? Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. So these four purusharthas are considered to be the goals of the humankind, but they are not completely spiritual in nature. The nature of people who follow dharma in this world is generally materially motivated, and that materially motivated practice of dharma is kicked out right in the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam. What is this materially motivated practice of dharma? People perform dharma, various rituals and other dharmic activities, to get artha. Artha means money. And people utilize that artha, money, in kama, means sense enjoyment. And when they are frustrated in their kama, they think of moksha. And what kind of moksha? Impersonal liberation. We are done with this material enjoyment. We are done with this material relationships. We are done with this material world. We are done with this material forms. Neti, 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 neti. And they generate an opposite conception of all this variegatedness in the material world. And they create a illusory conception of the spiritual realm, where there are no names, no forms, no relationships, no activities. There is void, there is null. That kind of moksha they want. We want to merge into nothing. No activity, no forms, no relations, like that. So this kind of practice of religion, this kind of practice of dharma is condemned right in the beginning of Bhagavatam. Dharma projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam. So I will not elaborate on this shloka, then half an hour will go in this shloka only. So point is, Gajendra is describing about Sakama Bhaktas, and their practice of religion is also mentioned. Okay. Now yam dharma kamartha vimukti kama. These Sakama Bhaktas desire dharma, kama, artha, mukti, four purusharthas. They desire liberation, they desire artha, money, they desire sense enjoyment. Further they perform dharma. Bhajanta ishta gadimapnuvanti. Because they worship the Lord with these material motivations, they get, the Lord will be, okay fine, you want moksha, take it. You want artha, take it. Okay. So, but kim cha shisho ratyapi deham avyayam karotu medabhradayo vimokshanam. So that kind of blessings, material blessings, are not worth aspiring for from the Lord. So devotees are supposed to be, or eventually they should upgrade themselves to the position of Nishkama Bhaktas. Okay. And it will naturally happen also. Initially one may begin with a desire to perform bhakti. Such people are called Sakama Bhaktas. But eventually they can become Nishkama Bhaktas also. Okay. Now you see, Dhruva Maharaj. Dhruva Maharaj was a Sakama Bhakta initially. What was his kama? What was his desire? He wanted to attain a kingdom which is superior to even his great grandfather Brahma. Okay. He was not allowed to sit on the lap of his father. He was not allowed to sit on the throne of his father. So immediately he became so ambitious that I want a position which is superior to Brahma also. I want a position in which even Brahma did not sit. So with that material ambition, Dhruva performed bhakti. But within 6 months of practice of devotional service, his aspirations were transformed. Okay. He became a pure devotee. He became regretful. He was so repentant. Why did I desire such broken pieces of glasses? I am getting diamonds of Krishna's darshan. Okay. So a Sakama Bhakta is a Sakama Bhakta only for a short amount of time. Right? The Sakama Bhakti is just a phase. The very fact that the person has come to the shelter of Krishna will become a Kama Bhakta soon. Initially they may begin with a desire to attain something, but eventually they will give up all material desires, because by sincere practice of bhakti, one will one will receive such nourishment and happiness and bliss that one will think that nothing in front of this spiritual joy uh, seems to be valuable to me. So they can relinquish all material desires just by their absorption in the practice of bhakti. For Dhruva, it happened in 6 months. For regular devotees, it may happen in 6 years, or 6 decades, or 6 lifetimes, but it will happen. To the degree one's practice of bhakti is sincere. One may think, I am practicing bhakti since 10 years, 20 years. Why I still have some material desires? Okay. Why I still have some sakama tendencies? We need to go back and check our regularity in bhakti. Okay. So, Srimad Bhagavatam says in the first canto, Savai pumsam paro dharmo yato bhaktiradhokshajin ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. So the supreme duty of entire humanity is bhakti. That is clear. And how that bhakti has to be performed? Ahaituki, without any motivations, without any selfish desires, without any personal agendas. Unmotivated. Second is apratihata, no interruptions. Today I chanted Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Tomorrow I will take a break. That's not expected from a sincere sadhaka. Okay. So our advancement and satisfaction in bhakti are dependent on the purity of our intent and the consistency of our attempt. Okay. Purity of intent is ahaituki. Consistency of attempt is apratihata. So when we continuously practice bhakti and keep aside our impure motivations, eventually those impure motivations will just go away like uninvited guests. Yes, Dhruva Maharaj began his bhakti with an impure motivation, with a material agenda. But because his practice of bhakti was uninterrupted and very consistent, very sincere, he sincerely followed the instructions of Narada Muni. His motivations got purified. Okay. He was a Artharthi Bhakta, but he became a pure Bhakta very soon, in 6 months only. And Gajendra, no, why to go to fourth canto? Let's see this Gajendra episode itself. Gajendra began by offering prayers to the Lord, saying that, my dear Lord, please protect me. Gajendra was an Artha Bhakta. But towards the end of the prayers, we will come to that in maybe 10-15 minutes. We see that Gajendra said, my dear Lord, even if you come and protect me from this crocodile, I don't wish to live anymore in this animal body. Please relieve me from this ignorance. You see, Gajendra became an Akama Bhakta very soon. Right? So basically, the tendencies to derive sense gratification from our practice of bhakti cannot remain for longer time. Okay? What is long for one person may not be long for another person. Different people may take different amounts of time to overcome their material motivations, but if they stick to the practice of bhakti, eventually they will overcome. It may take few years, or few decades, or few centuries, or few lifetimes, but it will happen. Okay, depending on the seriousness of our desire. So, okay, we talked a little bit about Sakama Bhaktas. So Gajendra's next prayer is about Akama Bhaktas or Nishkama Bhaktas. Very beautiful shloka. एकान्तिनो यस्य न काञ्चनार्थं वाञ्छन्ति ये वै भगवत्प्रपन्नाः अत्यद्भुतं तच्चरितं सुमङ्गलं गायन्त आनन्दसमुद्रमग्नाः एकान्तिनो यस्य न काञ्चनार्थं. Such a sweet shloka. Ekantina bhaktas are those people who have one pointed attention in their practice of bhakti. Okay. Ekantino yasya na kanchanartham. That ekantina bhaktas, bhaktas are devotees who have one pointed focus in devotional service. Ekantina bhaktas na kanchanartham vanchanti. They don't want anything else other than bhakti unto Krishna. vanchanti ye vai bhagavat prapannaah. First quality we have seen, they don't desire anything material. Second quality is bhagavat prapannaah, they are completely surrendered unto Krishna. Okay, so what is the third quality? Very interesting quality. First quality is na kanchanartham, they don't desire anything other than Krishna bhakti. And the second quality is bhagavat prapannaah, means they are completely surrendered unto Bhagavan. Third quality is atyadbhutam tacharitam sumangalam gayanta ananda samudra magna. Ati adbhutam means extremely wonderful. What is wonderful here? Tat charitam, the Supreme Lord's pastimes. Sumangalam, they are very auspicious. Gayanta, devotees glorify the auspicious and wonderful activities of Krishna. And what is the result? Ananda samudra magna. Ananda means bliss. Samudra means ocean. Magna means immersed. So devotees, by discussing the auspicious and wonderful pastimes of Krishna, they are immersed in an ocean of bliss. This is the nature of pure devotees. Okay. So this is the nature of Nishkama Bhaktas. Tamaksharam Brahma Param Paresham Avyaktamadhyatmika Yoga Gamyam Atindriyam Sukshmamivati Duram Anantamadyam Paripurnamide. So Nishkama Bhaktas, because they are completely dedicated to that Supreme Lord, so they can easily attain the Lord also. Okay, there is more important import to these shlokas. So, but let's analyze so far. Gajendra initially glorified some general characteristics of the Lord. Okay, how he is the supreme cause, he is transcendental, he is the supreme energy, he is supreme energetic. The next two shlokas, Gajendra glorified the qualifications to see the Lord, and although one has material qualifications, one cannot see the Lord. So that Gajendra spoke. Then Gajendra talked about the appearances of the Lord. Later Gajendra talked about the beautiful qualities of the Lord, how he is the Supreme Father, Supreme Deliverer, Supreme Director, Supreme Cause, and the supremely merciful protector of his devotees. And finally Gajendra talked about Sakama Bhaktas and Nishkama Bhaktas. Now Gajendra began with a desire to save himself from the crocodile's jaws. But later Gajendra felt that, my dear Lord, even if you save me, I don't feel like staying in this body anymore. So I want liberation from this crocodile's jaws. But ultimately I want liberation from ignorance. Okay. So everyone is covered by ignorance. Any material problem that we encounter is because of our ignorance of our real identity as servants of Krishna. When we become aware of our original identity as servants of Krishna, and when we act according to that identity of being servants of Krishna, then no problems, no material problems. Of course, material problems continue to exist even in the case of a devotee, but the devotees are unaffected by those material problems. So when a material problem comes, devotee, an exalted and a mature devotee, does not just pray to the Lord to relieve himself or herself from the difficulty. He or she also prays to relieve from the ignorance that causes the difficulties. Okay, so because of ignorance, avidya, we perform so many karmas, material activities, and because of this karma, which is impious at many times, we accumulate reactions. Okay, and because of the sinful reactions that we have accumulated, which is papa, Then there is klesha. Klesha means difficulty, suffering. So avidya is the root cause of suffering. So if avidya is destroyed, no more suffering. Okay. Now I'll give one more example from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. So in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, we see that there is a great king, demoniac king called Jarasandha. Jarasandha has captured 20,000 kings. He arrested them. And all these 20,000 kings wrote a letter to Krishna. Okay. And a messenger took that letter and came to Dwaraka and read that letter in front of Krishna in Krishna's Sudharma assembly hall. The messenger read that all these 20,000 kings are captivated, arrested by Jarasandha, and they are requesting Krishna to come and release them from this Jarasandha's captivity. Now Krishna went, okay, and it's a long story. Krishna released them from that. Krishna had Bhima kill Jarasandha. So Krishna took Arjuna and Bhima and went to Jarasandha, and Krishna empowered Bhima to just divide Jarasandha's body into two parts, and Jarasandha died, and all these 20,000 kings were liberated. They were released. Now these kings offered a prayer. My dear Lord, we expected, we wanted you to protect us from the demoniac king Jarasandha. You did that. But we actually want another kind of protection from you. Please protect us from Maya. Please release us not from the jail of Jarasandha. Please release us from the jail of ignorance, the jail of Maya. So we are all Kshatriyas. What is our tendency? We want to go out and conquer others' kingdoms. We want to expand our own territory, our own kingdom. We accumulate lot of property. We fill our treasure houses, right? We suppress people, we oppress people. We have a lot of enjoying spirit. We have a lot of controllership mentality as Kshatriyas. So please release us from this controllership mentality. Please release us from this greed of expanding our kingdom. So in the 12th canto of Bhagavatam, there is a song called Bhumi Gita, which is sung by Mother Earth. What does she say? She says that so many people have ruled me. Okay, some king comes and rules for say 50 years, and he claims that this earth is mine, this land is mine, and that person dies. Another person comes and he says this land is mine. Another king comes and then defeats this king and makes him his slave, and then he says this land is mine. Another more powerful king comes and arrests this king or kills this king, and then he claims that this property is mine. Like that, hundreds and thousands of kings have claimed proprietorship over Mother Earth. Mother Earth is smiling at them, laughing at them, and also feeling pity for them. You are thinking that this I belong to you. I am consort of Krishna, right? I am the consort of Krishna. There is Sri Devi and Bhudevi. If you go to South India, the Lord has two consorts, and also Varahadev's consort. Mother Earth is popularly known as Varahadev's consort. Anyways, Mother Earth belongs to Krishna, but foolish kings claim Earth to be their property. So now these 20,000 kings captivated by Jarasandha realized that, my dear Lord, don't save us only from this material difficulty, okay, that came upon us because of Jarasandha. Please save us from the root cause of material difficulty, which is ignorance of our original identity as your servants. Please save us from Maya that makes us think that we are controllers, we are proprietors, we are enjoyers, we are rulers, we are dictators. We are meant to expand our kingdoms and then show our authority over citizens and soldiers. Please release us from this mentality itself. So that ignorance induces controllership mentality. So Gajendra was ignorant earlier. That's why Gajendra was thinking that I am the controller of this entire forest. Okay, no one can survive by confronting me. So Gajendra seemed to be the controller. After a while, Gajendra realized that I am not the controller. Crocodile is the controller. Crocodile controlled my leg. But now, in 5 minutes, we will see that Crocodile is not the controller. Gajendra is also not the controller. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the controller. Before 1000 years, Gajendra seemed to be the controller of this entire forest. But during this 1000 years, Crocodile seemed to be the controller of Gajendra also. And all the other elephants were unable to do anything. But just in 5 minutes, we will see that Krishna is the supreme controller who can kill that crocodile. So, we have to consciously make an endeavor to give up this controllership mentality. Krishna is the supreme controller. Only if we understand it and act according to that understanding, we will be peaceful. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhridam sarvabhutanam gnatva mam shanti vrchati. Bhokta, Krishna is the supreme enjoyer of everything. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. Second, Krishna is Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He is the supreme controller of all planets. He is the enjoyer, he is the controller. And people who are having the tendency to enjoy and control generally are not kind to common people. But although Krishna is the supreme controller and supreme enjoyer, he is Suhridam Sarvabhutanam. He is the supreme well-wisher of every single living entity. So, the supreme controller is our well-wisher. What a sense of security that creates in our hearts, knowing that the supreme master, supreme controller, the supreme ruler of the spiritual realm, the supreme source of all avatars, the supreme origin of all opulences and all planets and all universes, he is my friend, my well-wisher. He is so close to me. He is staying right within my heart. So what a sense of security that a devotee feels. As we progress in our devotional service, we should feel this sense of security in Krishna's protection. We should feel the warmth of being in Krishna's lap. Krishna is equivalent to millions of mothers. A mother is definitely affectionate towards her child, but Krishna is equivalent to millions of mothers. We receive unlimited affection from Krishna, if only we are willing to receive that affection. Krishna is always willing to shower that affection. Gajendra struggled so far and did not call for Krishna, but Krishna is waiting for Gajendra to call him. So as soon as Gajendra offered these prayers, so the prayers are prayers invoked the Lord. So although Gajendra described so many qualities of the Lord, this Gajendra, this elephant, did not speak a single name of the Lord. Okay, whom is he calling? Krishna, Rama, Varaha, Narasimha, Vamana, Vishnu, Krishna. Whom is Gajendra calling? No one. Gajendra just described the attributes of Lord, and all these attributes are there in Krishna or in Vishnu. So he came. Okay. So Gajendra, although he did not call the Lord by any specific name, the Lord came. Okay, the Lord came to protect Gajendra. Okay, and if you see, the Lord's logic is that Gajendra did not call me with some specific name or address any specific form. Just general characteristics he described, but all the qualities that Gajendra described are present in me. So qualities matched. So I will come and protect. But in Ajamil's case, Ajamil called out the name Narayana, 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 Narayana. But he was not calling the Lord. He was calling his son. So the Lord thought my name matched. In Gajendra's case, qualities matched, and in Ajamil's case, name matched. And you see, go to Vrindavan, Putana. So Putana came in the form of a beautiful woman, right, with motherly affection, and wanted to kill Krishna by offering her milk to Krishna. What did Krishna do? Krishna killed her by sucking her milk and gave her the position of a mother. So Putana had absolutely no intention to show any motherly affection towards Krishna, right? So her attitude is very malicious, but Krishna did not see attitude, he saw attire. The attire matches with a mother. Okay, so Krishna rewarded Putana for her attire. Okay, and Krishna blessed Ajamil for taking his name. Krishna blessed Gajendra for just enumerating his qualities. Although Gajendra did not even know who is the Supreme Controller, whom he is addressing to whomsoever it may concern. Sometimes we write letter, right? To some government official or someone. To whomsoever it may concern, please respond to my request. You don't know whom you are addressing to. Gajendra's prayer was like that. But still, the Lord came and protected. So basically we need to understand that the Lord is so merciful that He tries to find even one small insignificant reason to come and save us, to protect us and to bless us. We should be willing. We should be willing to take His shelter. But the Lord has absolutely no reservations. Okay, He's always happy to protect us. But if we don't want, what will He do? He will not force. He doesn't want forceful love, and He doesn't want to forcefully give us love also when we are rejecting. No, I don't want. Okay. So now Gajendra, when he offered these prayers very fervently, the Lord immediately came running. Okay, on the back of Garuda. So now all these prayers of Gajendra were heard by different devatas also. So demigods also have heard the prayers of the Lord. And some of the qualities described by Gajendra, that the Lord is controller, this and that, they are present in some demigods also. At least few qualities are there. But no one has come. Why? Because the demigods thought that, Gajendra, did he call me? Did he say Brahma? Did he say Shiva? Did he say Indra, Chandra, Varuna, Vayu? No. So everybody thought that I am not being called. Why should I go? Okay. So the Lord did not think like that in Ajamil's case or Gajendra's case or any other devotee's case. Even uninvited also the Lord will come. Did we invite the Lord to stay in our heart as super soul? He Himself came. Because of His love. So because He loves us so much that He doesn't want to leave us. Even if the living entity commits such abominable and sinful activities and takes birth as worm in stool also, the Lord stays right within the heart of that living entity as super soul. To that degree the Lord loves all of us. We have to reciprocate with the Lord's love. Even if we show a little bit of affection or love for the Lord will profusely respond to our calls. Okay, that's the nature of the Supreme Lord Krishna, right? So now all the demigods thought that Gajendra never called, and he called some Lord, the Supreme Lord, and he doesn't come so easily. To get his mercy is not that easy. So the animal will die. They all thought like that. So the thought of these demigods itself is offensive. Okay. So as I discussed some time back, all three Krishna has. Okay. What are the three qualities? Capacity, compassion, and cognizance. He has all the three qualities. So the elephants had compassion and cognizance. They didn't have capacity. The demigods had cognizance and capacity. They didn't have compassion. Or you will find somebody who has all three also, but not at all times, but not at all places, but not to unlimited extent. Only Krishna has. Krishna has unlimited capacity to protect us from any calamity at any time. Krishna has unlimited compassion to protect us at any time, anywhere, from any kind of calamity. Krishna is always aware of what's happening with us. Okay. So Krishna is the supreme protector. Yesterday we discussed Krishna rakshatu no jagatraya guru Krishnam namadhvam sada Krishne nakhila shatravo vinihita Krishnaya tasmai namah Krishna deva samuthitam jagadidam Krishnasya dasosmyaham Krishne tishtati vishvametadakhilam He Krishna rakshasva mam. So Krishna is the protector of all three worlds, right? He is the creator, he is the maintainer, he is the destroyer. So if we have to take shelter, the most worthiest shelter, the worthiest person who can give us shelter at all times, in all circumstances, in all ways, is only Krishna. Hey Krishna Rakshaswamam. We have to lift our hands in the air and then completely surrender it to Krishna. That's what Draupadi also did. That's what Pandavas did several times. Okay, we also discussed in our previous sessions that we need to all these calamities and difficulties give us an opportunity to increase our dependence on Krishna. So in difficulty, some people blame God. In the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Chitraketu's son died. So Chitraketu's wife, Kritadyuti, blamed Krishna. Hey, what kind of God you are? Okay, you are not existing. She spoke so many things. So people's faith on Krishna or the Supreme Lord gets shaken up in the midst of calamities. But in the midst of calamities, the faith of devotees will increase and their dependence on Krishna will increase and their remembrance of Krishna will be more intensified. Every calamity should give us an opportunity to strengthen our faith in Krishna and increase our love for Krishna and increase our dependence on Krishna. Okay, and we will also be purified from whatever traces of anarthas and impurities that we have in our hearts. So the Lord came running. Okay, so when the Lord came running, all the devatas became astonished. We thought that the Lord will not come. We expected that Gajendra did not take his name also. He will also not come and animal will die. But he is coming on the back of Garuda. So all the devatas, they started running behind the Lord. Okay, because they got this offensive thought that the Lord will not respond. To think that Krishna will not protect us is an offense. All the devatas have done that offense. They thought that Krishna will not protect, Vishnu will not protect Gajendra and Gajendra will die. But they realized that offense. They came running behind Krishna offering prayers. Now you see, one elephant, one animal offered some prayer. What impact it had in the celestial atmosphere, in the Vaikuntha atmosphere. From Vaikuntha, the Lord is descending on the back of Garuda, and all the devatas are also coming along with the Lord offering prayers. Okay, these prayers invoked more prayers from more devotees. Okay, so all the devatas were seeking forgiveness from the Lord for their offense. So the Lord came. So the Lord immediately came and pulled Gajendra by holding his trunk out of the water and released his Sudarshan Chakra. Within a fraction of a second, he beheaded this head of this crocodile. Now, this need not happen only with Gajendra. This can happen for every single devotee. Okay, every single devotee can receive such loving treatment of the Lord, loving affection from the Lord. Bhaktapaya bhujanga garudamani Trailokya Rakshamani Gopi Lochana Chataka Budamani Saundarya Mudramani Yah Kantamani Rukmini Ghanakucha Dvandvaika Bhushamani Shreyo Devasikhamani Dishatuno Gopala Chudamani Bhaktapaya Bhujanga Garudamani. So the Supreme Lord Krishna is compared to Mani 8 times in this shloka. If you have noticed my recitation of this shloka, there are 8 Manis in this shloka. Mani means a jewel, right? A precious gem. So Bhaktapaya Bhujanga Garuda Mani. Whenever the devotees are in some calamity, some difficulty, the Supreme Lord comes on the back of Garuda to protect his devotees from all calamities. Have you seen that picture where the Supreme Lord in his four-handed form comes on the back of Garuda and a devotee just raises his hands like this from an ocean, right? He's rescuing us from the material existence, right? So I think I have that picture in my laptop. So Bhaktapaya Bhujanga Garuda Mani Trailokya Rakshamani. So I opened that picture, let me show you. You saw this picture? So the Lord protects all his devotees. Okay. So now devotee just has to raise his hands and then seek the Lord's protection. Okay, the Lord is there. So Bhakta Paya Bhujanga Garuda Mani means the Lord appears like a mani, blue sapphire, shining blue gem on the back of this Garuda. Garuda looks like a golden mountain, and the Lord looks like a bluish gem on the back of Garuda. Okay. Bhakta Paya Bhujanga Garuda Mani Trailokya Rakshamani. In this way, the Lord protects all his devotees in the three words. Gopi Lochana Chatakam Budamani Saundarya Mudramani. So the Lord is compared to a very precious gem. And what kind of gem is this? Ambudamani. So gem like cloud. Okay. Gopi Lochana Chataka. Gopis are like Chataka birds. The gopis' eyes are like Chataka birds. A Chataka bird constantly looks for the rain cloud to shower some rain. Okay. They drink water only from the rain cloud. They don't even take water from a transparent lake or even Ganga or Yamuna. They just want water from the rain cloud. So the gopis also do not relish any forms of the Lord, whether it's Rama, Krishna, Narasimha, Vishnu, anything. Once they saw Vishnu, they said, oh, it is Vishnu, Dandavats. Did you see Krishna? That's how the gopis inquire about Krishna from Vishnu. Okay, they are not attracted to Vishnu form also. They are like, their eyes are like Chataka birds, constantly looking for Krishna's beauty. Gopi Lochana Chataka Ambudamani. Ambuda, just like Chataka bird looks for Ambudi. Ambudi means this cloud. Similarly, the Chataka birds of Gopi's eyes constantly look for the beauty of Krishna. They always want to see Krishna. Okay, and his body is also like bluish cloud. Gopi Lochana Chatakam Budamani Saundarya Mudramani. He is such a precious gem which is collection of all beauties. Yah Kanta Mani Rukmini Ghanakucha Dvandvaika Bhushamani. There is a Kantamani, the best of all, the crest jewel of all queens of Krishna, that is Rukmini. Okay, on her chest, on her heart, Krishna is resplendent like a beautiful gem. Yah Kantamani Rukmini Ghanakucha Dvandvaika Bhushamani Shreyo Deva Sikhamani Dishatuno Gopala Chudamani. So Krishna is also like a crest jewel of all cowhead boys, right? So let him protect us. Why did I say this shloka? Because in this context, Bhaktapaya Bhujanga Garuda Mani, that's very relevant in this context. To protect his devotees in all the three worlds, the Lord comes on the back of Garuda. Just like he came on the back of Garuda to protect Gajendra from this lake, from this crocodile. And we are in, not in lake, we are in Bhavasagar. We are in an ocean of material existence. Krishna will protect us. Not only one crocodile, there are unlimited crocodiles in our ocean. What are those crocodiles? The six senses, the six anarthas. Okay, these are the real crocodiles. We are being constantly caught and bitten by different crocodiles of anarthas and Maya. So the Lord just pulls out Gajendra from the jaws of this crocodile, and also the Lord beheads this crocodile and completely protects Gajendra and liberates Gajendra also. So now let's go to the next chapter and quickly complete. It's almost 8:30 now. So Gajendra, as soon as he was protected by the Lord, there was praise from all directions, and the Devatas also started showering flowers, and there were kettle drums and dance and singing and prayers. And crocodile actually was a Gandharva. Once he was cursed by Devala Rishi. Okay, he is a Gandharva named Huhu. So the crocodile assumed his original form, and Gajendra received Sarupya Mukti. Okay, he received a form similar to the Lord, four-handed form. So now Gajendra's past life. I'll quickly summarize this section. Gajendra in his previous life was a great king called Indradyumna Maharaj. Okay, he was ruling this Dravida province, and he was so detached, and he gave up his kingdom. He retired from his kingly responsibilities, and he went to Malaya hills, and he built a simple cottage in ashram and started performing his austerities and devotional service. He wore matted locks, and he was always in ecstasy, absorbed in Krishna Prema, and he perfectly worshipped the Lord, and he was worshipping Lord Achyuta, and he was quite self-controlled. He was doing Maunavrata and all. One day, a great sage named Agastya Rishi came to Indradyumna Maharaj's cottage. At the time, Indradyumna Maharaj was doing his deep meditation, and Agastya Rishi came along with his disciples. But Indradyumna, because he was absorbed in meditation, he could not receive Agastya Rishi. But Agastya Rishi became very angry with Indradyumna and said that this person is behaving like a dull animal. He does not know the principles of guest reception. He is an asadhu, he is not gentle. He is duratma, he is degraded. He is akrita, uneducated. He is vipra avamana, means he has insulted vipras, great brahmanas. He was quite offensive. So Indradyumna Maharaj was cursed in this way, and that Indradyumna Maharaj became Gajendra in this life, and now he goes back to Godhead along with the Supreme Lord now. Now, in this context, Acharyas give several lessons to all of us. Indradyumna Maharaj was actually not at fault, because Indradyumna Maharaj was doing his meditation. It's not that he purposefully insulted or offended Agastya Rishi. He did not mean to offend Agastya Rishi, but Indradyumna Maharaj just happened to get absorbed in meditation. At that time, Agastya Rishi came. But Indradyumna Maharaj patiently received this curse, and he did not protest. Now, although Indradyumna Maharaj was not at fault, still the Lord has arranged for this unprecedented incident in his life and made him an animal in the next life, and eventually he was purified in this one animal life. He went back to Godhead also. So sometimes some unexpected calamities come in our life. For example, Parikshit Maharaj did a very small mistake, small offense of putting some dead snake around the neck of Shamik Rishi. All of you know that. But he was cursed to die in 7 days. And Chitraketu Maharaj, Chitraketu Maharaj was traveling in his airplane, and he saw Lord Shiva sitting along with his wife Parvati on his lap, and several sages were there. So Chitraketu Maharaj became a little concerned. Oh Shiva, you are supposed to be exemplary to common people. If common people see you, that you are embracing your wife in public and making her sit on your lap in the assembly of so many sages and celestial beings, people might misunderstand you, people might criticize you. Even ordinary people also embrace their wives in private, but you are embracing your wife in public, so people might misunderstand this. Although you are exalted, but people might misunderstand this. So out of that concern, Chitraketu gave a feedback to Lord Shiva. But Parvati got offended. She said that when Brahma, then 4 Kumaras, and Bhrigu, Narada, such exalted souls kept quiet without commenting on Lord Shiva's behavior. Who is this person? Who is this impudent person who came to teach us dharma? Looks like Brahma, Narada, Bhrigu, Kumaras, all of them forgot dharma, and this impudent person came to teach us dharma. Okay, so, oh my dear child, I curse you to become a demon, my dear son, she says. Okay, so just like a mother chastises a mischievous child, similarly Chitraketu Maharaj was chastised by Mother Parvati for his impudent behavior of giving a feedback to the Lord, to Shiva. So of course it's a mistake. Chitraketu had a slight tinge of pride. So the Lord arranged for the purification of that pride by making him into a demon, Vritrasura. You know the story. So now the offenses are insignificant. but the reactions are very severe. Okay, so but the Lord is quite merciful towards his devotees. Although apparently he gives very severe punishments to his devotees, still the Lord is very kind and affectionate. If you see, Parikshit Maharaj was cursed to die in 7 days, but in 7 days he went back to Godhead. Okay, within 7 days he went back to Godhead. Okay, and in that 7 days we all received Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, so apparently the Lord is being very strict or unkind towards his devotees, but he is accomplishing so many things and glorifying them. And now Indradyumna Maharaj was cursed for a small mistake, but within one lifetime, as Gajendra, he went back to Godhead. Okay, and this who is this Chitraketu Maharaj. So he was cursed to become a demon, but as demon he exhibited more devotion than as Chitraketu. Okay, so Chitraketu Maharaj is not as spiritually advanced as Vritrasur. In the form of Vritrasur, Chitraketu is much more spiritually advanced. In the form of deer, Bharat was more advanced than king. There is King Bharat, there is deer Bharat, there is Jada Bharat. Apparently the Lord punished this Bharat Maharaj to become an animal because of his undue attachment to the deer. But the Lord is so kind that on a spiritual plane he allowed the soul to progress towards his lotus feet. Same thing. But we discussed about the Lord's arrangement in the lives of devotees. Let's see the devotee's outlook. Parikshit Maharaj did not protest. He did not complain. He did not hate Brahmanas. He did not retaliate when he was cursed to die in 7 days. Chitraketu Maharaj did not retaliate when he was cursed to become a demon. Similarly, Indradyumna Maharaj also did not retaliate. He just accepted this calamity. So what is the outlook of a devotee? What is the perspective of a devotee? What is the disposition of a devotee in difficulties? Bhagavatam speaks. Tattenu kampam susamikshmanam bhunjana evatmakritam vipakam hridvagva purbhir vidadhan namaste jivetayo muktipade sadaya bhat. Means tattenu kampam susamikshmanam bhunjana eva atmakritam vipakam. Whatever difficulties I am facing in this life are just results of my own past deeds. Atmakritam vipakam. This is what a devotee thinks. I deserve more difficulties in my life. I deserve more reactions to all the sinful activities that I have committed. But the Lord has given me only token amount of suffering. Right? A devotee is not overwhelmed with a feeling of injustice when he receives some difficulties, but he is overwhelmed with gratitude towards the Lord. Okay? He thinks that these are all results of my own past deeds, past misdeeds. And what am I supposed to do now in this context? I just have to pray to the Supreme Lord Krishna to protect me in all circumstances. I just have to continue my devotional service with body, mind and words. So devotee is tolerant in the midst of difficulties. Devotee understands that difficulties are reactions to his own past deeds. Devotee understands that without the Lord's sanction, nothing will happen. Devotee has complete willingness to accept the will of the Lord and execute the will of the Lord. And as a result, devotee will become qualified to go back to Godhead. That's the nature of devotees in the midst of difficulties. Bhagavatam presents the examples of several devotees who have undergone so many calamities with a grateful heart, with complete humility and tolerance, without any complaints. So we see that in Indradyumna's case also. But within one lifetime, as an animal, as an elephant, Indradyumna Maharaj went back to Godhead. That's the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Thank you all very much. Granthara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hey Prabhuji, thank you so much for such a nectarian explanation or description of the prayers of Gajendra. And